Hey everyone, we've all heard the phrases, time flies, where does the time go? Yeah, you've all heard those things. And you know what? I was reminded of it as we came into the new year this year, 2020. The time does indeed fly. Can you believe it will be 20 years ago that this album was released? The Beatles One, by the greatest musical artist of all time, and what could be the greatest Beatles album of all time, right here. Think about it, folks. Released on November 13th, the year 2000. 20 years ago. I can't even believe it's been that long since this came out. Here's my original CD I bought way back in 2000 with the beautiful Richard Avedon pictures on the back. Portraits. My inside, here it is here. You all have this. 20 years ago, folks, we all went out and grabbed it. We all went out and bought it. Folks, I still am amazed that this album is that old. But I wanted to celebrate it a little bit today for a reason is because you know how sometimes like we get things, we'll buy things right away when they come out. And then there's other times like you'll go, oh yeah, I'll get that eventually. I'll pick it up eventually when I get a chance because it's something common. Well, several years ago, the vinyl came out and I finally got the vinyl, and I know it's old hat and many of you have had it for years already. I think it came out in 2015 or something like that. But I finally got it. I recently got it. I want to show it to you, and I thought what better way to show it than to put it in its own dedicated video and talk about this album and the significance of it and the beauty of it and the wonder of it. First compilation, I believe, that the Beatles put out on CD with just one disc. You know how the red and blue albums were double disc. I think this was the first CD of theirs, compilation like best of, that's just one single disc. And it struck a chord with the public, folks. It struck a chord with everybody. Beatle fans, music fans, and even semi-music fans alike. This album is universally acclaimed, and it surpassed everybody's expectations of what it was going to do and its potential. Because this thing has sold, and this is as of a few years ago, I got these numbers, over 31 million copies of One have sold. And again, I'm sure it's higher than that now because that was stats from a few years ago. 31 million copies, folks. Think about that. From a band who was formed 60 years ago, put out their first release 58 years ago, broke up 50 years ago, and they put out an album of this magnitude? Need I say more? I mean, the Beatles are the greatest musical, artistic achievement in the last 200 years, and probably will be for another 200 plus more years. I mean, think about it. And I'm not just being a fanboy here. This is the facts. This band is the band that keeps on ticking and keeps on going and going like the Energizer Bunny, only more. They're just phenomenal. 31 million. This album was the best-selling album of the first decade of the new millennium. Think about that. 31 million sold, and in the first decade of the 21st century, it's the #1 selling album. From a band that had been 40 years broken up, done at that point. This is the sixth best-selling LP of the entire 21st century. Pretty good, huh? First 20 years of this century, and this is still at number 6 as far as sales. Whew. Again, more great stuff. There's 27 singles on here that reached #1 in the US and around the world. It was remastered for this 2000 release. They remastered all the songs. And then a few years later, when they were putting out the One and One Plus video set where you could get all the different videos, 25 on one DVD or 50 on this nice double set DVD, or you could get it on Blu-ray too. As part of this, everything was remixed and remastered by Giles Martin. Okay, it comes in a beautiful book, this one I have, and you get the 50 videos with a beautiful, like, I don't know, 100-page book or something, which is great. You've seen this all before. But then in the back, you get a special remixed version of the one album, which is beautiful. And I have to tell you, folks, the sound on it is fantastic. Giles and the gang did a great job. I love it. So I bought my vinyl. Here's my hype sticker. I saved the shrink wrap on it. But because it's such a thick, big package, and I have to say a beautiful package, I put it in one of those freezer bags. I snipped off the top where the Ziploc was, as so many people have done and recommended, and I put it in one of these, and I tell you, it fits like a glove. It's perfect. I mean, because this is one thick album. I mean, look at this thing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful package. Again, I believe this came out in 2015. Correct me if I'm wrong, for that remixing and remastering by Giles. And this album, folks, #1 in 35 countries when it came out. It was, I think it went right to #1 in the US. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it debuted at #1 in the United States. Pretty good, all right? They're the first, the Beatles are the first again in something. There's so many things they are head and shoulders above, but they are first and the only artist to have a best-selling album in 2 different entire decades. Sgt. Pepper for the 60s was the top-selling album of the 60s, but in the first decade of the new millennium, 2000s, this is the #1 selling album. Can you believe the Beatles accomplished something like that? It doesn't surprise me. They've achieved so much throughout their course of their existence that it doesn't surprise me they'll have many more achievements and records as time goes by. And what's nice is I also got some information that the Beatles have had an album reach #1 in 4 different decades. They've had an album, obviously, #1 in the 60s, in the 70s. I don't know why they didn't, it doesn't show they had one in the 80s. I guess they didn't really say anything too good in the 80s. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But I'm saying nothing in the 80s. But in the 90s, I'm not sure what it would have been in the 90s. Help me with that one. They had a #1 in the 90s and in the 2000s. So another achievement for the Beatles. 4 different decades, a #1 album. You can't beat that. So anyway, folks, I went to my local record store and they had this dirt cheap. I couldn't resist it. Here's the back. I love it. I'm so happy I finally got this. And I just want to open up and show you the beautiful gatefold with the Richard Avedon portraits. So wonderful. Look at this. I love that. And I'm going to show you everything. Why not? I mean, it's time to celebrate 20 years of this album. Beautiful packaging. You get the 2 180-gram vinyl albums. And here's the first one. There's that back side. Now, let's look at one vinyl anyway. I'll just take one out because I looked at them both and they're both the same. All right, beautiful, huh? Look at that. Oh, gee, what a nice... You know, I always like these, you know, obviously you like elaborate covers from our favorite artists, and certainly the Beatles had some pretty elaborate and colorful covers over the years. But I've always liked the simplicity of some of the Beatles releases, like the White Album. Very simplistic, and in many ways this album reminds me of the packaging of the White Album. You have a very heavy double album package, you know, with nice, you know, inner sleeves, and you also get portraits of the Beatles. So you also get a portrait of Paul, just like the White Album came with 4 portraits. There's Ringo's. There's John's, and there's George's. Very nice touch that they put these portraits in the package. And another thing that reminds me of the White Album is, but first let me show you the record. Now, second disc is that it also, I'll show you the vinyl, why not? Okay, same thing. All right, beautiful. That it also comes with a poster, which I thought was a very nice touch. Again, I don't know if I'll be able to open the whole thing and show you, but basically again, all the sleeves of their singles from around the world. Again, I want to be very careful with this. It's not very heavy stock. The portraits of the Beatles is pretty heavy, but this poster's kind of, I don't want to have an accident right on camera here. That wouldn't be cool, but I'll just kind of show you. It's a very, you know, very thick, heavy, well, the paper isn't that heavy, but I mean, it's very cumbersome. Anyway, I'll just say that. But you get all the different singles on it. Sorry, I couldn't really show you the whole thing there, folks. My bad. But anyway, you get the idea. So you're getting these beautiful portraits. You're getting a beautiful poster. You're getting the disc. You're getting a nice inner sleeves with pictures on this big, thick package. And I just wanted to celebrate it, folks. This album is 20 years old. 20 years old this year. Can you imagine? And that's it, folks. I just want to say I'm so happy that I finally have it on vinyl. I finally have the vinyl package. I've been wanting to get it for a long time. And thanks all for being here. I appreciate it. And let's celebrate One. Let's celebrate it. Tell me your memories of One and what you love about it. It's just a phenomenal record. And it may be the greatest Beatles album of all time. God bless. Bye-bye.